In Africa, mental health is not only psychological, it's not only physical, it's also a spiritual condition.
The only time I think the African would regard anything mental is when you are clinically certified to have mental issues, where you are raving mad.
Now that's the problem in Africa. Also, we define things more. If it's not clinical, then it's spiritual.
I don't know why this seems to be a universal thing in this part of the world. Why can't you be mental and be neat?
In other societies who are more advanced, they have places where they keep their mental patients. While us traditionally in Africa, you'd keep your family member at home.
Africa, we are also big on secrecy.
Yeah.
Like it stays in the
Keep it
family.
within the family.
So if it's something that they need to settle and talk, they rather call the family or the others in your family and you sit down
meeting.
and discuss it.
That's why when you want to get married, they send family members to
Go and do
and say investigate. Do they have a history of madness in their family? Because if they do, it means maybe the gods are not
Happy with
them.
The first war that is won is the war of the mind.
True that.
You must win this war here first before you can do anything else.
Use it or lose it.
Exactly.
Your mind and your body.
Exactly. Somebody who is calm, you push them to the limit. Maybe it's a defense mechanism because there's a way you would push a poodle as tiny as it is, it will bite you. There's all that moment where you see in the Nigerian contest, are they crazy? Are they mad? So I think that's that. Something needs to trigger you.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Ennis Fabric. Ennis Fabric is passionate about preserving heritage, telling stories through African fabric, making it accessible, fashionable, and unforgettable.
Let's talk about mental health in Africa. In Africa, mental health is not only psychological, it's not only physical, it's also a spiritual condition. Whether it's sangomas in Southern Africa or ngangas in Zambia or dibias in Igbo land or bokas in Hausa land, there's always that link between spiritual healers and modern medicine and the physical in Africa. So let's talk about it. What do you guys think? Do you think that mental health is a psychological condition purely, or is the spiritual aspect in African tradition? Do you subscribe to that? Do you believe in that?
I think first off, did anything mental health ever existed in the African context, talking about back in the day? I'm trying to wrap my head around, let's say, my great-great-grandfather saying today he doesn't feel like going to the farm because his mental health is disturbing him, or he's going through one trauma. So he cannot, he can't farm today. I don't think that concept existed back then, because everything in Africa is somewhat tied into the spiritual realm. If you feel some type of way, maybe at that point it could be spiritual, but at that era and their understanding and what they were exposed to will be termed to be more spiritual. So in my opinion, it could have existed and maybe they didn't have a name for it. Maybe it could have been ascribed to some kind of spiritual attack if you're feeling some type of way, but for it to be acknowledged as a mental health issue. The only time I think the African, maybe, I stand to be corrected, would regard anything mental is when you are clinically certified to have mental issues, where you are raving mad, roaming around the streets and, picking dirt. And that's the context of mental health when you look at an average African setting. But to have such mental health where you say, I'm dealing with some trauma, I went to the farm, one lion attacked me, I escaped because of that. It wouldn't be like that. They wouldn't look at you as weak because in the African context, it's like this: only the fittest will survive. Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
So if you gave off that kind of vibe of having a mental issue, you'll be termed weak, and unfortunately, you might not be able to survive. Maybe they might even banish you, or maybe you might be relegated to go somewhere. Like, this guy is not strong enough. in the African setting, a man should be a leader, should be fearless, should be a warrior. And here you go, like, I can't go to the farm because last time a hyena chased me. So because of that, my mental health is disturbing me. Clock it, I can't go.
You know, when you were saying that, it just reminded me of a part of Things Fall Apart, the novel by Chinua Achebe. Okonkwo, who was the main character, his father was considered a very lazy man because he didn't like to farm, he didn't like to wrestle, he didn't like to do anything. So while you were talking, I was just thinking, what if men that were considered lazy were men that were dealing with one mental thing or the other? You know, like, yes, they could not.
It really makes so much sense because, like, if you see, like, first of all, if you come back to, like, these words, like, even there are several cultures in Africa, like, there's no even word to define mental instability. So, like, that means it does not even originate in our culture because we don't believe in it. Because if there's no one thing about cultures now, right? If words have been defined already with term, like if you want to do a transcription of what that already means. Now, if you want to see words that mean it, they wouldn't definitely mean like mental instability, but they'll have a separate meaning for it. Maybe you're not maybe you're not well to do in this certain area of life, but clearly to define that you're mentally unstable, they're definitely meaning maybe you're mad. That's clinically. You understand? Now, that's the problem in Africa. Also, we define things more. If it's not clinical, then it's spiritual.
Spiritual, yeah.
It's spiritual.
Right.
Like, when you were saying about this, I had a very funny story like my dad was telling me about that when I was growing up. He said one day he wanted to go to the farm when he was young, and then his dad now came and told him. So he went to the farm there, and he saw a baboon. You know those big baboons now that are in African forest. So he ran and left the farm. His father told him that he better goes back to that farm. That baboon that there to kill him. That he should go back. So you see that even in most Africans, it's either fear or you're not afraid. There's nothing like trauma in between. Is that you're afraid?
And if you're afraid, face your fears.
It's just
that's how you prove yourself.
I have to say.
Funny
We don't
enough,
believe in that.
I think that mental health did exist.
It did.
When I was doing my research, I found out that in some parts of Tanzania and even Kenya too, you know, some of these warriors that go to war, they came back exhausted, they came back tired. And, you know, war that time was not just going with spears and arrows. They fought spiritual battles. So what happened is that, for example, we have gods like Ekwensu that, you know, are now termed the devil. Ekwensu obviously is like a trick god.
Yes,
a god of war that when they're going for war, they like call him to come. So now they ignite those gods, the gods of destruction and all of that. Now, some of these generals that went with them were not just generals like normal generals that are giving command. They were spiritualists. You cannot go to fight like that. There's something they even call it in Hausa, Andafakwa Magani or something like that.
Even in southern Nigeria, they cook
they
people.
cook people.
They've been fortified.
Yes. So when you go for those kinds of war, obviously you cannot come back the same. The devil is of you. So I even found out that there was this woman that was talking on TikTok. She said what they did is that you don't just come back to the society like that. They keep you in somewhere for like 3 months.
And like then isolated.
Yes, you get isolated. And then there's a treatment they do. They believe that it's also a cure for PTSD.
Okay.
So it's called the African suction cup. They put like horns at your back, you know, antelope horns and cow horns.
Yeah.
So they believe that as they are removing bad blood, bad energy, and then it relieves you. So it's also like a serious cure for PTSD now. Even in spas, I think they do that now.
Yes.
And that's a good one. I think earlier you said something about you don't believe that we had some of those terms.
No, I said in some cultures, right? In some
The word to
African
describe
cultures,
it
the word
never
to
existed.
describe-
But I have seen words to describe that. Like, for example, even in Yoruba land, weary is for madness, right? But there are categories of that madness. There's the weary that you go outside, you're scattering everywhere. That one is more like schizophrenia. And there's weary that, okay, maybe this is a congenital disability, maybe from your birth defect. It could be from your parents, from your genes. Then there's weary that it could be, you know, more about like anxiety, depression. So, and not only in Yoruba culture, many cultures across Africa. I saw some in South Sudan too that have like 4 names for different types of mental illnesses, you know. So you see it across Africa that I think we're looking at it from modern eyes that, okay, mental health or mental illness is a European word. But in Africa, there were words for each category of mental
I think
illness.
the most like lenient point is because like even when we are having like mental health issues back then in Africa, it's usually tied to spirituality. It's usually tied more to spirituality. Like we don't have a time to sit down and say, okay, this is a psychological disorder somebody has. He has to go to somebody to talk to. No, it's usually tied that okay, maybe he's having demons he's facing, he's having devils.
Maybe you're
he's facing.
possessed.
You're possessed. That's the first thing that comes to their mind because it's Africa, like I said, that you're there or you're not there. So if they feel like you're having some time, don't just say it's spiritual. You're having
Sometimes
a
it's not
spiritual
even
attack.
possessed. They'll say that you went to go and do rituals.
Yeah,
I was telling Miss Linda this thing that there was this lady in Ethiopia. So her brother schooled in Ghana. So he went back. He like after school made money, all of that. And you know, right now they believe that Yahoo Plus, whatever happens in Ghana. So it was like, oh, his money came from, you know, all of that. Baba ran mad. And you know, the first place that people's mind were going to was that, oh, is blood money, is this one, is that one.
Thanks to Nollywood.
Another point. Another point.
And when you were saying that, it reminded me of a comment section I saw on Facebook years ago. Very popular post. This rich man came down from his SUV randomly one hot afternoon, started stripping, walking around barefoot, and people were like, what's making
wrong?
it? So people were commenting, saying outlandish things like, oh, blood money.
Yeah.
It didn't shock me because these were all strangers. What shocked me was that I saw my cousin, someone I knew, like my first cousin. She was also one of those people commenting. She was like, blood money, end of the weekend. I was like, what?
Well,
Like people,
end of the weekend.
Yeah, this is someone educated.
Sounded like a chant.
Exactly. The end of the weekend even sounds like a line from a Nigerian movie. So you can see how the impact of Nollywood also affects what we think of
It affects
mental
the
health.
mental health.
Yes, we just judge people and ascribe conditions to them and
Somebody
say, okay,
can be
you did
mentally
something.
deranged and going through serious problems. Spiritual attack. Yeah,
I think that's the
According
reason.
to Pastor.
It's because Africa is largely a spiritual place where everything you do not understand will be termed spiritual. Like the
Immediately.
example you gave with those who went to war and they have to do some suction cups to take out the bad blood, they still feel it's spiritual.
Yes.
Even though the whole idea, the whole concept is psychological. Because when you go to war, your senses as a human being, your empathy for human life
Yes.
would definitely erase.
Because it would be like killing chickens.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to somehow detox yourself of all of that animosity, that rage, that bloodthirstiness, and all of that before you come in. But then those tribes you talked about will look at it like, okay, this is a spiritual process.
Yes.
Let's take out that bad blood. It's physical, but there's a spiritual connotation attached to it. And that is why it still takes us back to mental health is always perceived as a spiritual thing or maybe even non-existent. The only mental health is when they see somebody clinically mental,
Mad.
raving mad. And in the African context, I don't know why this seems to be a universal thing in this part of the world. Why can't you be mental and be neat? In the African context, you'll be mental, wearing tattered clothes everywhere. You have dreadlocks because it's
You
unkempt.
lie down on the road.
You eat trash and all of that. That's the kind of mental illness Africa is aware of or know of. But this modern time, with the advancement in, the Western education and all of that and exposure, we begin to understand that mental health are at different stages. Even those stages you mentioned, it will just be, maybe these are the stages before you go full-blown mad.
I think
They
No,
won't
I
look
didn't
at it.
even mean stages. I meant in various degrees,
Degrees.
or categories.
Categories.
Like, some mental illnesses are more like
Stronger.
violent,
Violent,
like people
yes.
being
More
reactive,
tangent.
while some are more like internal, like maybe it's the erosion of your mind or reality, introspection, maybe anxiety or depression, things like that.
Do you know, to be honest, now, I think also, right, that from my perspective now, it was more of like of a coping mechanism, like
Okay.
back in the days. Because, for instance, now, if you're going to have to deal with people, right, that at a certain point in their life, they're trying to progress. Understand? In those stages, like when we're back in like our olden days, like our ancestors, now, there were more problems that needed more of your focus
Yes.
than those mental problems. So people will not look. So the first thing they'll look at it is like, you're weak, straight up.
Yes.
Because we're not going to look at it. It's a form of weakness. Because, like for instance, like as you said, they need you to go and farm. They need you to go and hunt. And you want to tell them because you're mentally unstable, you cannot do all those. So the first term to just give you is you're weak.
You're weak.
So
It takes-
it's the copying mechanism. So if the community now needed to grow and expand, they can't have people doing that. Do you understand? They can't have people saying that they cannot do or they cannot function or be part of society because they have a certain mental instability.
Right.
You get?
It takes me back to the excellent reference she made from
Things Fall Apart. Yeah.
where maybe the reason why he was lazy because he was dealing with some kind of things. And at that time, nobody understood what it was.
Nobody
Maybe
knew.
he himself, I'm
did
sure
not even
maybe in
understand.
passing,
understand what was
Yes.
maybe in passing, they would be like, he must have offended the gods. Something is wrong with him. Maybe he's not the chosen one, or the gods they've laid a curse on him.
Yeah.
And that is why he's the way it is. So I don't think in the African context, elders or people who are knowledgeable would say, this is a mental illness that needs some kind of therapy.
Yeah.
Because it's either you're weak or strong, or you're just non-existent.
And it also,
Sadly, that's the African way.
It's just so sad thinking about it like how.
Honestly.
So like a thin line, you can just fall.
You just fall
and
in
then
between.
you now be part of the lazy people.
Exactly.
The weak
Exactly.
people.
and like it also falls with another line of like how Africans, like I was telling them earlier, right? We believe in this communal growth. You understand? So why most of the times too in some cultures they didn't believe in that mental illness because it kind of separates you from the
Yes,
community.
isolation.
It isolates you exactly. That's the best way. It isolates you. And most of the times, whenever you have something like that, people tend to deal with it as a group. That is why, like when this modernization of like how mental therapy is being done, where you go and sit down with somebody that doesn't even know your family member, you know, somebody individual you don't know, hearing like your own stories. And you know, Africa, we are also big on secrecy.
Yeah.
Like it stays in the
Keep it
family.
within the family.
So if
Yes.
it's something that they need to settle and talk, they rather call the family or the elders in your family and you sit
family
down
meeting.
and you discuss it. You understand? So I think maybe that was our own form of dealing with this mental struggle that people had. That was our own way of dealing with it. But we didn't believe in somebody that was not part of our community, having to know what is happening in our community as well.
And I think it was also like, we've already established that it's a spiritual thing in Africa. That's why when you want to get married, they send family members to
Yes.
and say investigate. Do they have a history of madness in their family?
Yeah.
Because if they do, it means maybe the gods are not
Happy with
happy with them.
Yeah.
That is why there's a curse. And you don't want to marry into that family and take that curse into our own
your own
family.
family.
And
So that's why.
interestingly, I just I'm trying to connect to the episode we spoke about Aliku, whereby we said we gave examples of probably if someone dies in the village, you'll not say that maybe it's this person, the person will run mad. Bunka was talking about panic attack. Maybe because everybody is suspecting you, you just panic
You
attack.
don't have a panic attack. It's like
And
it
then
can
they'll be like,
happen.
this person has confessed.
You have confessed.
Wahala for who they panic.
And like that science has even proven on its side that panic attacks can kill you faster than a heart attack. Like you can slump and fall in there, and if you don't have the proper medical treatment, then you will die.
And you know, Africans, they cannot hide it. Once they are suspecting, see, everybody will stop talking to you. You are the last one that spoke to you.
Psychological
Yes.
warfare.
Psychological warfare, and you're fighting there alone. You're fighting there. You're like they said, the first war that is won is the war of the mind.
True that.
You must win this war here first
First.
before you can do anything else. And if in Africa we don't even believe there's a war here, how can you fight it?
No, I think in Africa we believe that here and the spiritual are the same.
Are
So
inclined.
if you conquer,
Conquer the spiritual,
Yes,
you're
conquer
conquered
your-
here.
your-
That's
you know,
exactly.
the
We don't
demons in
believe
your
they are
head.
separated. We believe that whatever is inclined, your mind is inclined to the spiritual. So whatever you're dealing here is either spiritual remedy that can deal with it. So and where it's not always the case. It's not always the case. Some of like that's how we don't even believe in trauma too.
Yeah.
And
no,
then
but
that-
the example she gave about the suction cups, that's an example of trauma,
Trauma.
post-war trauma.
now that one is how
But
to
it
do
was
like
also
how
tied.
violent
It was also tied to spirituality.
Yes, like
because
spiritual
they now
elements.
feel they have to physically suck out the bad blood,
Right,
so
right.
that your new blood will be expunged of all of the atrocities you must have committed
Right.
at the war front. So it's still spiritual in a sense.
And you have to
I
look
think
about
we've
the degree
established
too.
that, like even though like African mental, will I call it an industry or whatever it is, they have like in their catalog, they believe that the physical and the psychological and the spiritual are
intertwined,
connected.
yes.
So they are looking at post-war trauma in their own terms, because this is a modern term we're using now, but also ascribing spirituality to it. So they are using physical methods to actually also,
Expunge out whatever illness.
Maybe it's like, for instance, like I said, it has to be the degree of what happens to him. For instance, now if it's something like in a modern day home now in Africa, they don't believe like a child is going through trauma. They don't believe that a child has trauma. So it has to be that degree. Okay, you went to war, you're fighting, that kind of violence.
Oh,
but
like
like modern
something very
day,
big.
yeah, something very serious.
Yes.
We don't believe in all these kind of little things. Those are smile, Joe.
You know,
telling you.
that's why there's something called first world problems and third
Third
world
world
problems. You know,
problems,
I think that there's a level of comfort that a person will reach in their lives, and they'll have to create adversity for themselves.
Yeah, struggle
I
will be
totally
there for a
agree
human
with you.
being.
Yes.
And the reason why I say this is because if you just take a very normal day, surf the net, or binge watch TV shows, and I'm talking about reality TV shows, you see a Caucasian kid who has everything at his disposal,
Yeah.
and he looks at a bush filled with thorns and says he wants to drive his car and jump and dive into a bush
said he's depressed.
filled with thorns.
Yeah, he said he's depressed.
Nothing is pushing you to do that, but because
Because they
your
don't have
society
danger.
has
It's already
everything,
it's
you are
already
now
comfortable.
trying to create some kind of danger or wall for you to
Because
conquer.
human beings are actually supposed to be conquering. We're supposed to be hunting and gathering.
Yeah.
You know, now we're comfortable. Our money is in the bank or in investment banks.
There's
making money for
insurance to
us.
take care of you.
Yes, you know, you can
the
just
thing is that
relax.
human beings need a need to survive. We have what we need something to live
Purpose.
for. Yes,
Yes.
that purpose. We need something to live for. So the moment everything is comfortable, imagine now you don't have a reason to work. You have a reason to wake up and go and find your daily bread. Everything is catered to you. You will create something of your own mind to need to live for. So that's the next thing now. And if those are the only things that you can succumb to, you succumb to it.
And you know, looking at the human body, if you have everything at your disposal, your human body will get sickened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're not active. You're not putting your body to the use.
You're not putting your mind to work.
Your body is, you're meant to go to the farm, till the soil. Your body is meant to, as a guy, you need to go into the farm, into the forest to hunt and to fish and all of that. But if you're not doing none of these things, your body begins to accumulate toxins to the point where you fall ill. So the way the body is designed, you need to put it to work.
You need to move. They
You
say
need to move.
use it or lose it.
Exactly.
Your mind and your body.
Exactly.
And you know what's interesting is that even with this idleness we just spoke about, they still believe it's spiritual, because you hear things like the idle mind is the
Devil's
Devil's
workshop.
workshop.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And it really comes to the fact, like, as a human being, right, natural human being, if you cannot have a mind to reason or to think and actually solve problems for yourself, you end up creating problems for yourself. Because if everything is catered for you and solved for you, then what is your mind doing? Your mind will then tend to create problems for itself.
It begins to wonder. That's when they say
What
the
do I
devil.
do?
That's when the devil comes in and say, "Hey, what if you just pick a gun, go to the school, and just shoot up everybody?"
Right. Exactly, because as it says now, the person that doesn't have a purpose who has to create purpose for himself.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the line that we Africans don't actually see trauma in that side. It's because we have so many things that we're trying to grow from. We're trying to grow, we're trying to progress. Like, I don't even think, like, personally, if you look at an everyday to day life of a normal African, they don't even have time to sit and think or reflect about themselves. So where's the trauma coming from? Trauma that he's trying to pay bills, he's trying to sort his life. So that kind of situation, like as you said, there's first world problems and third world problems. And I think the more you actually have things like that are given to you that are at your doorstep, the more you have to create what you will do then.
Yeah.
Now, if we fast forward into modern day Africa, where there was a period where I think I can call it a fad, where young people, at the slightest discomfort, they'll be quick to shout, "My mental health, trauma," and all of that. That was a phase. And if you ask me, it has fizzled away. Because
It has reduced, but
It
some
has
people are still
reduced. Yes,
still on it, yeah.
I remember
weaponizing
this. I remember this. We're having like a wedding program in our family. So one of my cousins, so they were talking to him, "Oh, go and do this, go and do this." You know how she had to tell her, the auntie, "No, you're disturbing my mental health." You know, my mental health is that. So you can clearly say that, and it has fizzled away because like we attack it due to the notions or like our culture. And our culture, we don't have things like that. You understand? And if we are not usually used to things like that's the first thing about the human mind. If it's not something you're used to, you fight it. You fight it. And if it's something that is accepted, that's when it becomes the normal. But it's not normal. It's not normal to be hearing people saying that, "Oh, this person has trauma, is going through trauma, this is going through depression, this in the family." So it's not widely accepted in the African norm. So that's why whenever it looks alien to us.
You know, I'm pretty sure that someone watching us right now will say, "How dare we say trauma doesn't exist," and all of that. And sometimes my response to that is stop glorifying it. You go through something, yes. For the fact that you're aware that you're going through something, that's the solution in itself. You begin to look for solutions, or you ask,
That's
you
true.
go about and ask for solutions. People who are going through trauma sometimes don't actually know because they think it's part of it.
Actually.
So for the fact that you can actually say, "Hey, I'm going through this. This is what I'm
Yes,
going
logical
through." That is a
reasoning.
solution in
That's the
itself.
solution in
So
itself.
seek for a way to solve that. But some people glorify it at the slightest
glorify it.
discomfort.
Want to bask
My
in it.
trauma.
My trauma,
baiting.
please.
You know, parents, there's this thing that I can't remember the phrase right now where they say something about trauma, your parents or something, you're aiding the trauma or something. I can't remember exactly.
Generational trauma. all those
Generational
ones.
trauma.
Some people will be like, "Oh, cut off your family, cut off your parents for your own
Generational
mental
trauma.
health." Things like that.
And you see, if you look at that, that's not the African way.
It's not.
It's
We're
not the
very
African
communal.
way. We're very communal.
Very communal.
If you want to be serious about it, sit your folks down on your family members and look for a solution.
Yeah.
That's why you see sometimes you hear people saying, "Your daughter is troublesome, keeps giving me problem." Send them to your auntie far away in maybe Kaduna. And it's not as if they're going to deal with you. They might just give you a different environment.
Yeah.
Try to listen to you, let you breathe and, express yourself in that different environment. And sometimes it works wonders. Like we see when most times Africans ship their children back,
Yes,
maybe
from the
they're
diaspora.
unruly,
Yes,
they're
Reset,
reacting.
cultural reset.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, they send you back.
They send
and
you back.
sometimes the child goes, oh my God, it's affecting my mental. After a while, they begin to understand,
And be like,
appreciate, and even go back and thank their parents
Yes.
for giving them this opportunity to see things from a different point of view. So in Africa, it's always a communal thing. So people who always say, cut away generational trauma from your parents and all of that, unfortunately, are just trying to mirror what is out there in the Western world or what is out there globally. It does not apply to our customs and our culture. That does not mean that we don't have a solution. If you're going, maybe it is trauma, but called a spirit. But at the end of the day, there's
We have
always a solution.
for
Yes.
that
It
problem.
might not be the solution that is popular, but the solution always lasts long and it's always being revered by the person who goes through that. I think there's a video on social media of a young guy who said he was shipped, he was mad. At the end of the day, he's really thankful for what the mother, because it has made him who he is today, getting the best of both worlds. But people are not ready to do that. They want to be comfortable with the soft life. But the African way is not soft. It doesn't mean it is brutal. It just means it is factual. And that's why it's totally different.
I think it's interesting that he mentioned that the first stage of cure is like you actually know that you're going through something. And personally, I think that there's a thin line between generational causes, because we've said it's spiritual, and then there's generational trauma. I think that the reason why we feel like some things are causes is because we as human beings, we tend to live our lives similarly to the way our parents did. Do you understand? And I think that's
we pick things subconsciously.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, because
Which is natural.
Which is
because
natural,
Monkey
exactly.
see, monkey do. You mirror what you see.
but I think it's high time we be intentional, because you hear things like generational causes. Sometimes these things are not causes. They are just probably things that your parents did. For
And
example,
you're doing as well.
the way they
Yes.
handle situations,
Behavioral patterns.
the way they shout. Do you understand? And you see that your life is going the same pattern. And then you see people say, this people,
This
they are
generational
if your
trauma,
father-
yes. Or like, for instance, the way they scold you, the way they treat you. Like if you do something, the way your parents scold you, the way you're also scolding your
Scold,
child.
yes.
No, that's just a behavioral pattern that you've picked up.
That you picked up.
And you
picked up
can also
And you
drop
can
it,
drop it as
when
well.
you're intentional.
You can
yes.
drop it as well, because you picked all this in your mind subconsciously picks it.
It
Your
just
mind
thinks,
learns.
you know, at that point, it's like, this is the right thing to do. Yeah.
So even sometimes when you even find yourself doing, and you be like, oh, I'm behaving like my parent. It's not generational cause. You just learn what they're doing, and you can also drop it as
can
well. If you're
unlearn,
you can
yeah.
unlearn.
You know, I
can
saw a
learn.
quote that says, "Be the person you wished you had when you were younger." Like and that really made sense. I feel like if we really want to evolve and make the world better, you should check out what were the things. If I'm treating this person like that when
Would
I
I
was in
want to be
this
treated
stage,
in
did
that
I
same way?
enjoy
Yes.
being treated? Yeah. So I think
But some might actually look at that and fault it. Why and how? Okay, your parents treated you that way maybe when you were in the 80s. You treated your parents, your children differently because you do not want to give them that kind of treatment. Then if you look at, I'm sure they're going to come for me, if you look at the Gen Zs, the excesses are enormous. Having gender identity issues, trauma left, right, and center. They don't want to do much. They have mental health issues where they want to unalive themselves because of the slightest discomfort they feel.
Depression.
Now, if you look through it, they will tell you the reason why it happened like this, because parents went soft. We even see this in Europe, in Americas, where they tell you in the 80s, we rode our bikes, we fell down and we scraped our knees and we got up and we drank tap water. But now the Gen Zs, they take a sip of tap water, they're sick for months and sick for days. And it shows that maybe at some point, there needs to be some form of rigidity when you're raising your children.
I mean,
Because
these
people
sorts-
tell you, I don't have to be
Gen
I don't
Z
have to be your
wants to-
friend.
wants
No,
I don't have to
I
be your
want to
friend.
agree.
I don't want to I don't have to be my child's friend. I'm a parent and I want to parent my children because I want them to.
And if you parent them well, you'll be their friend when they're adults.
Yes.
But if you start doing soft, parenting, so to speak, you begin to develop some kind of
It's actually
monster.
called gentle parenting.
Yeah, gentle parenting. You begin to develop some kind of monster that you cannot, I wouldn't want to say control, that you cannot figure out. You begin to ask yourself questions. It's all out there on social media.
I think
people who talk back, who beat their parents, and all of that. During our time, it was impossible.
it's really like as you said now, but it's really a culture thing. As we try to diminish or demonize a lot of like habits and how our parents or like the olden days, like they trained or they raised our parents or our grandparents. We try to demonize it because we're trying to look for a softer way out, and the softer way might not always be the best way out of it. I truly believe there's a balance, whereas we can still pick some of these ways or these
I think that's
patterns
what I
and
wanted to say,
actually
the balance
actually balance it, like
Yeah,
without even
the
having
balance.
to push any trauma. You can be strict. There's a difference
And also
between being
be
stern
soft.
without
Yeah.
being wicked.
You can be stern,
You
and
can
at
be
the same
stern.
time, you can be
Yes.
You can be
the
soft.
same lips that will say, I dare you not to do that. Same lips should be able to say, oh, I am sorry you went through this. I
Yes.
apologize. Come,
That
let me give you a hug.
That
You know the
balance.
problem we
Because
don't fit in Africa,
parents
right?
didn't used to apologize.
I
said, no,
apologize.
apart
Are you
from that,
okay?
Don't say come and eat.
There's a very thin line we don't understand between fear and respect. We mix them together in Africa. We intertwine them too much because there's a
true.
very thin line between if you fear somebody and you respect you. If I respect you, I'll respect you enough not to say some certain things in your face. I'll respect you not to talk to you in a certain way.
Yeah.
But I'm also not afraid of you, so I can come up to you when I have problems. But
Have
while
access
some
to
days
your
in the back,
parents.
in the back, sometimes in like subcultures back there, you're afraid of those parents. You can't come up to them. That's the difference between fear. Fear now, he can't talk to you. So that's why whenever even they are dealing with whatever they are going through in the Africa communal space, they can't tell them. But if it's respect, he respects you enough to know that you listen to him. But if he's afraid, he looks at you like a devil now.
Yeah, it's true.
You just say something, he's running.
And it explains why you're watching TV in the African setting and you hear your father's car pull up and everybody's
You're running.
they
You're
disappear like ants when you switch on the lights.
Like,
And the
exactly.
very funny thing is you pick up your book and you're reading. Like, what are you reading? You're not reading anything.
Exactly. So I think like it's actually like you said, it's actually a culture thing, and it's something that Africans. Me, whenever I see argument like this, I always try to look for the most linear lining because we have to look at things always in times. Like back then, they just did the best. That was the best method to survive. That was the best. So to be honest, as I agree to some of them are not always right. We can't always fault them for it. Those were the best methods or best way
Because
to survive.
it shaped those people into who
shaped
they are
you.
today.
Yes, now.
And who are these people? They've gone on to be bank
Yeah.
managers, governors,
Exactly.
presidents,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
A strong
Because
society
of-
will always build strong people. Exactly. And a weak society will always breed weak people. So the moment that those, like for instance, if you just look at a child now that their parents have been strict on the rules that they follow or the way they have to adhere or follow their life now, sometimes it might not always end up the way the child always wants it to go, right? But there's always a fine line. It always, most of the times, it always goes that way because you are being strict on that. But like I said, there can be a balance.
There's a balance.
There's a balance where you can meet
balance.
respect instead of fear.
I think creating a balance is key. I want to borrow a leaf from what you said about strict parents. I remember back in days in school where you get people who came from very strict homes in the university. Unfortunately, most of them end up being wayward.
Yes.
They just want to do all sorts. Before you know, they have multiple sex partners. Before you know, they're not reading their books because the concept of freedom to them is amazing.
Very
It's intoxicating.
alien.
It's intoxicating. They want to soak up everything. They want to go for all of the parties and all of that. In this context, we can say that person's mental health was disturbed from the house because they did not prepare them for the world. Now that they've left them to sojourn in the world, they want to soak up everything. And in the process, they make all
They lose
sorts of mistakes. They
themselves.
lose
Yes.
themselves. They don't achieve nothing. And at the end of the day, they become a shadow of themselves. They start to ask themselves questions. Where did I go wrong? It was because they were kept in a certain mental condition. And all of a sudden, they were set free in the name of go to school and go study. So you mean to tell me I can stay up till 9?
Yeah.
I can go see a boy in his house?
Right.
You mean I can sleep over and nobody question me? The world is my oyster. Let's make a pearl. So that's so,
It's very simple. You cage a lion and it will know how to live in the wild.
Exactly.
So when you drop it there now, for him, he sees maybe a small prey, and instead he thinks he's the prey.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know,
You
like
cage a
I
lion,
have
he
a
can't
friend.
be-
I have a friend. Like for boys, especially when you're growing up. If you start indulging in alcohol, you be like, man, I can't believe I'm drinking this. And you see somebody like, yeah, well, it's nothing special about it. Like, well, we used to drink in my house, so there's no big deal about it. Why
And
drink
they
when I
can
can
usually
drink at home?
control their liquor.
They can
Yes.
control
Yes.
it. But you, who your folks never, you're like, oh my God, this flood them in my veins. I want to take everything now. So it's totally different. And it's the mental health and the thing that I feel Africans, especially African parents, should look into. creating that balance. Nobody say you should be a softie. Nobody say you should apply gentle parenting. But the same lips that would warn that child, caution that child, punish that child, can also say, I love you, I appreciate you, you are amazing, I am sorry, I see you doing your best, and I'm here to support you. That's the balance we're looking for.
You know, interestingly, I like that Bonga mentioned the issue of fear. When I was in nursery 3.
You remember your nursery 3?
I do.
Wow.
It was a very, maybe this one is not my trauma, Sha. Like I had a similar issue like that, and what happened is that my mom that morning, I don't know what happened. She tied my lunchbox. It was so tight, and I was actually very small that period. I could not open it. So, and now we had a rule in class that once, I don't want to call her name, once she was eating, we could not go and meet her. I was so hungry. So I was actually a very patient child. So I just dropped my food. When I go back home, mom went out so that the food was untouched. So I just casual. I said, Mrs. This person said when she's eating, we should not come close to her.
It's easy.
Imagine
My mother now,
for nursery school children who don't come close to me.
My mother now, hey God, the next morning, she dragged me, went to that school. She went and did the unthinkable. She reported to, it was a Catholic school, reported to Reverend Sister, and luckily we're in totem. So I was scared. We shall finish that semester. Primary 1, first term, I did not see her. Secondary, I did not see her. So, we used to see in school, if she's like this, I'm like this. Because I used to feel like, after what my mother did, this man has me in mind. The way she was looking at me, it was very scary. And I entered primary 2. Lo and behold, she's our form teacher. Jesus. And then she was also taking us mathematics. I'm telling you that the moment she stepped on that board to teach us, I don't know, I was just frightened. I never paid attention. I was just scared of her. It was like at any point she was going to hit me. Oh. She now said, and I was doing very bad in maths. She was now the teacher. She now called my dad. She now said I should give her my daddy's number. I was scared. I was terrified. When we now went home, I think they had spoken. So I knew that there was danger. I started carrying my bag, went inside. Shut. My father now called me because he called me Mbe. Now called me Mbe. Now he said, sit down there. I said, okay. So I sat down. I thought he was going to shout or something. And he said this in a very calm voice. He now said, what was going on in maths? And I'm telling you, the way he spoke to me, because of that voice he used to talk to me, it made me pause my fear and actually communicate to him what was going on. I said, Daddy, this teacher is not working for me. And he didn't say anything. He now said, but you know that school fees is expensive. I say, yes, sir. And you know that they have never pursued you for school fees. I say, yes, sir. And I said, okay, go. And because of that conversation we had, I went to school that day and I said, Jesus, my daddy is paying school fees. Who is she? So because at that point, he paused whatever. I know he was disappointed, but because he paused however he was feeling, he came down to my level and he spoke to me in a way that made me open up. It made me also pause my own fear of him, and I communicated what I wanted. So it was like sometimes you can't be the parents that you want to be. Sometimes you have to come down to their level and be the kind of parents that your child needs at that point of their life. So I think balance is very important, and that did not mean that I didn't respect him, but it was like he was at my level. Both of us now, we just communicated and
with understanding. So it just comes back to the point that we Africans actually understand. We know what trauma is, right? But maybe in the sense as we define that term is not always going to look like the Western ideologies. But we have ways that we deal with it, like you said, and that's going to be the spiritual, psychological. But way back then till today, the term has not always been alien to us. Africans know what trauma is, but we deal with it in different aspects. So now, since we have our own various forms of solving a certain problem, now you say, no, we don't actually ideal. We know what it is, and we have found ways to be dealing with it till this very day.
Yeah. So earlier, Mr. G was talking, and he mentioned something about mad people in Africa, how some are roaming the streets dirty with rags and things like that. And it just got me thinking that I think why we think those kind of mad people are only found in Africa is because in other societies who are more advanced, they have places where they keep their mental patients. While us traditionally in Africa, you'd keep your family member at home. No matter what, you keep them, you take care of them. If an elder is getting old, has dementia, is having cognitive disabilities, you keep them at home. They're still part of your family. You don't let them roam. So I think perhaps why we have a large number of people roaming the streets in modern Africa is because there's that break from traditional communal living that you leave your family members to go and roam. There's even a saying in Africa that, when a madman is dancing naked, it's the family members that feel shame. That's to tell you that family members are supposed to cover the nakedness of their family members. So if you have family members roaming the streets as an African, you're doing it wrong. Yes, it's your duty to get them off the street, bathe them, make them clean, make them responsible members of society to the best of your ability. And even if they can't be responsible members of society, they should be at home being cared for.
Like that's how we have always been growing. We grow as a community. We build like they say now, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So what is that village? Is you as a family or actually catering for each and everybody, looking over your shoulder for everyone. So if one of your family members is out there mad, it is your duty as a family, as a collective, to bring that person to order, take care of him, as she said, put him in like mental homes, to take care of him and make them better. It is your duty. So if we keep this communal living as Africa, I don't think we'll be having such problems, but we're driving off it, we're going off it, like we're driving off those communal ways.
And I think we should stop seeing all mad people like they did rituals or the village people are following them.
I think yet again, it's Nollywood that's responsible for that. Because I always also try to, like, you give the example of somebody just parked a vehicle, and why must it always be that dramatic? Even in real life, I'm not talking about movie scenes now. You see videos of people, sometimes a car pulls up in the market. Why must they always drop the people at the market?
Like, if you want to run mad, why do you need to go and run mad?
Why would you run mad in your house? Like, yes, like, to be honest, like, I think I saw I think last year or so, for a lady in Abuja, she just dropped somewhere and then she just started pulling off her dress. Yes, she went mad.
Oh, crazy.
So, you know that thing again, right? This thing when we say in this modern society that where we live in, where we see things like that, when we say they run mental, it's possible they were drugged. Maybe they went somewhere, a roofie was slipped in their drink. I've seen a lady trying to, I think it was a birthday party, and they now inhale helium from balloons.
I saw that video.
She was, taking, it was a party. Yes, immediately she inhaled the helium. She just started shouting, screaming, and acting all violent and all of that.
So it might also even
now,
be
it's
drug
possible
abuse.
now, maybe these people went out for a party, it was a house party, and they don't know where to take her to, so they drive her to somewhere where it's public,
a lot of
kick her
people,
out, so maybe people see her. And so most times it might not be mental illness, it might be drugs that they ingest, because these days young people take a whole lot of drugs, and maybe when the effect kicks in, they just take them somewhere and push them. And because we've been exposed with this Nollywood ideology and mentality, we just say, they must have used her to make money.
Exactly.
How? When the money in CBN is still accounted for, the serial numbers and everything in the vault is still there. So how did that happen?
Maybe the ritualists printed their own money.
Their own special stash. And they say, okay, for you to access it, bring this young lady and then withdraw from the ritual bank, central bank. So I think most times when we see things like that, it's a high possibility these young people were under the influence of drugs, or even older people. Yes, that's my maybe sometimes drugs, they take time to take effect. Maybe when they ingested it, it had not taken effect. They were driving halfway. It kicked in, and they started manifesting. The way drugs would not naturally make you do.
It's just natural. Like every society, the moment they don't understand something,
they just term it. Yes,
they term it whichever they want to term it. Some people do their own, but every society, the moment it's just human beings. The moment we don't understand something, we just give it a certain term that actually suits us, or that has been something that we have understood for a while. Like we understand the spiritual lenses of things. So the moment we don't understand something, we just incline it to spiritual.
It's just like
any disability.
I agree with you. Like many years ago, I think it was a brand product. I think it was Orange or Fanta or something. Some people were painted in orange clothing or attires, and they were walking around the streets of Lagos. Lagos went berserk. They said they were aliens from wherever, and so on and so forth. It was a big deal. The national TV took it, and they were talking about it and all of that. It holds true that what we don't understand in this part of the world, we always attach something mystical, spiritual, supernatural to everything. And I think it has fizzled into our day-to-day reasoning, our day-to-day life, and that's why we see it like that. Once something goes out of the ordinary, you are mental, or you are crazy, or
the village people are following you.
You've involved yourself in things that are not clean.
Very,
and the village people are just trying to survive. you know, and they are going about their jolly ways, trying to, you know, gather fruits, you know, hunt and all that.
Yeah.
And there you are in the city because of your reckless life. They are
Blaming
pinning it on them. And it's sickening.
Sometimes it even comes down to like accountability. You don't take accountability.
And that's,
for actions, so you're looking for
I think that's
something
the African way.
to pin it
Something
on.
goes wrong, we want to pin it on someone.
someone.
Somebody dies in the family, they look round. It was this man you married. If not for him,
This evil
it is this
woman.
woman you married. If not for her, this thing would not have happened. Because you were involved with this set of people, you have brought this evil has befallen us. And I think, I don't know why it's like that, but it's always like that. Sometimes you literally see families fishing for who to blame. There's a sudden death. Maybe it's a cardiac arrest or something. You look like,
It's not normal.
who was the person? Who saw him last?
Or who did he have beef
Who did-
with?
yes,
During
who
the
did have beef
wedding,
with?
this one was not smiling.
Smiling. This person is responsible for that. Who did you tell your plans?
Oh.
And before you know, enmity, animosity has started.
Yeah.
So I think it's the African. I don't know if I don't know if it's safe to say Africa, but let me speak for my own part of the world. Nigerians. That's how we see some things.
So you know Sigmund Freud, the psychologist, psychiatrist, researcher, he has a theory that all human beings, there's a thin line between mental health and mental health and mental non-well-being. So it's a very thin line, and that there's no one who is 100% mentally healthy. We all have one mental illness or the other, just in different degrees.
I think it's a mental breakdown. We all that. There's all that moment where you see in the Nigerian contest. Don't are they crazy? Don't
try me, oh.
are they mad? You know, so I think that's that. Something needs to trigger you for that. You see somebody who is calm, you push them to the limit. I think we all have that. Maybe it's a defense mechanism because there's a way you would push a poodle as tiny as it is, it will bite you.
Yeah.
Even though as small and defenseless as it is.
Yeah.
There's also a saying that goes, careful how you fight lambs because the lambs might become lions. Maybe I'm not saying it right. But what I mean is that I think it's a human defense mechanism. You might be calm and people might pick on you and maybe they do this 6 times a day or they've done it for years. One day you will snap. And that's just your body saying, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
No more flight. It's time to fight.
Yes, I totally believe, yes, like the mental, or you like say, like the composition of your mind. Or your brain. Like there are certain segments where it can get left off, and some, like she said, it's not balanced. Everybody has it in different variables,
Yes.
different degrees to it. So whether something takes effects in you, then it actually like tends to come out. You understand? So it's not like something that you have had. I totally believe that everybody has different compositions and different ways they handle things, different ways pressure
Yes.
is asserted to them. Like a certain mental pressure can be asserted on this person and it tends to react differently from another person.
True
so
that.
it definitely comes down to the composition of your mind and how you take things, how you
Yes,
react to things. So we're all different, as she said, we're all variables in this equation. So, but somebody's reaction will be definitely totally different from another
Different
person.
from
And then they
another
just give a
person.
term that this person is mentally
Yes.
unstable.
Yeah.
You understand? When we are all different, our mind works differently.
There's this saying that goes like this: pressure. You apply that to some, they bend. You apply that same pressure to other people, they break.
Yeah,
So everybody has their own level of propensity, for lack of a better word,
Yes.
on how or what they can take.
The mental
And
threshold.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
And you know, crazy, here in Nigeria, we like the mad people. I'm telling you that on TikTok now, you see people, there's this trend where they'll go to the market, go and get dressed. I don't know, do you see it? Probably like a makeup artist, she's going to go to the markets, get dressed from there, get her clothes, everything. You see people, they'll go lie down on the ground, carry their box or on top bike, they'll do makeup. Even Tacha, I think she did it, she was making herself up on
I
top
think
bike.
it's a trend maybe for TikTok content
Yes,
or
it's a
TikTok
trend.
views
Yes,
and all of that.
my point is that Nigerians actually like the mad people because if you check even the list of influencers now,
I think what's responsible
shock
for that.
value.
I think what that's one of it. I think for Nigerians, we're difficult to please. We don't easily get amused.
Yeah.
For you to get a Nigerian to get into you, it means your content must be exceptional. You might go to a concert and you just see people, seated and not even doing anything, especially here in the FCT, where an artist will come, everybody scream. They'll be like, yeah, who's this guy? So I think it takes a whole lot for us to be involved, for us to get amused, and for us to get, triggered. So that's why when you see things like that, I think it appeals to us because maybe these are the kind of things that tickle our fancy.
Yeah, you need to be a little bit of crazy. To try and a little bit. You look at people like famous, like let's say like TikTokers, you see like them Katefe, a little bit of crazy. He goes a little bit of berserk to please his audience, and he is actually gaining the followership.
That's a lot of energy.
So like we have to say that maybe she's actually making a point. I think Nigerians like something outside the box. Yeah, so why not use? We don't like the normal, So when you do something that outside,
maybe because
you get
we're not
popularity.
normal.
Yes, that's a very strong point. That's a very strong point.
I don't agree with that. We're lovely people. We are amazing. It's just that we've been through a whole lot, and I'm sure that.
So that's our trauma response.
Yeah, that's our trauma response. That is why you see them. They are more chilled when they see things like that. Like Nigerians are more chilled when they see people like that going up crazy. Like look at him. If you see his content, like he usually goes somewhere, he pulls out his own clothes and his boxers,
with
trying
his
to
powder on his face.
Yeah, and that is too well.
And like that is the trend. And that's what makes it like keeps people fascinating. Like they want to watch and they want to see. So is that really our trauma response, or are we excited by things like that? That's a very fine line. It's a very thin question we have to ask ourselves.
So in conclusion, in Africa, before the influx of European languages, in our own native tongues, we had names for various mental illnesses. So let me look at a couple. In South Sudan, there's one called Ngeriek, and it's the symptoms of cramped stomach, sadness, anxiety, things like that. Then in Burundi, there's Ibonge, and it's about severe sorrow, social withdrawal, and talking about loss a lot. Then in that same Burundi, there's Ihahamuka. It's about fear and PTSD. So you can see earlier we spoke about PTSD, and we can see that in Burundi, they even have a term for that.
Okay.
Then we have Ukutwasa in South Africa. It's a calling to be a healer. So imagine the gods are calling you to be a healer. They'll strike you with a form of mental illness. Maybe they'll give you anxiety, depression. You may even run mad unless you take your calling. So we can see how in Africa there's that link between the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual. Yes.
I've always believed in that.
Yeah, so they say if you're right with the gods, if you're right with nature, your family, your community, then you'll be right in your mental, physical, and psychological
it just
health.
comes to like one point. We just believe like there's a certain road to follow. So the moment we are not following the same path as which our Western colleagues are following, it tends to show us wrong, which is not. Because we believe that our mental, like you said, the physical, the psychological, and the spiritual are intertwined.
Yeah.
So whatever problem you're solving has to be linked with all those three. And if we're not solving it the way the Western people solve it, are just from the physical or the psychological, that means it's wrong, which is not always the case. We have had ways and methods, as she said, to deal with these problems, and the solutions have been proven over time. So are we wrong? If at the end of the day they say like if it works, it works.
True.
Does it work? If it works, then it works.
I believe that it works because, psychologically and spiritually, they say like, I think you said this earlier about how everything starts and ends in the mind. So if your mind is conditioned to speak life, to speak positively, that's why even in Africa, you don't say I am mad. You don't say I'm sick. You don't say I'm poor. You say I'm very strong. I'm very healthy. You declare life and positive things to yourself. Yes, in your mind, you know that there are some things you're dealing with, but you will not use your mouth to confess those bad things. You use your mouth to confess good things while you're working to trick your mind, because even in the science of psychology, they say that you can trick your mind
I'm telling
for
you.
good things to happen to you and manifest in the physical realm.
I have a brother who tricked himself till he died. He said he was not going to die till the day he died.
So you have to actually believe it. Like as you said, we believe it first in the spiritual. It even boils down to our names that we manifest God, we speak life into you. So that has always been how we deal with all those mental things. We do it from the spiritual, as you said, the psychological and the physical. It has always been intertwined, and that's how we have been dealing with mental issues for generations as Africans, and it has been working. And as long as it has proved to be working, the same methods that applies for the Western world might not always be the same methods that applies for us. We are different sets of beings, and as long as these methods have been working for us and they have been proving the results, then it works. I don't see a reason why we should have to demonize it.
So share with us, What names do you call mental illness in your culture, and how do you deal with them? How do you deal with people who are suffering from one form of mental illness or the other in your community? Let's hear them.
Yeah.
This brings us to the end of our show today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe at Forgecast Africa.